The following podcast contains adult content. It is not suitable for minors, professional settings, or the faint of heart. Welcome to FOREPLAY Goes South's About Last Night, a reoccurring monthly episode in which I take a story told on the stage last night's live event and release it the very next day.
Ironically enough, we're going to talk about another first time I've had. Little backstory, I've identified as a lesbian for the last 20 years. I was married twice. And this story I'm going to tell you is not about the first time I had sex with a woman, because that would be boring. But in fact, it's actually the first time I had sex with a man after I got divorced from a woman. And it took me by surprise, as you can imagine, because being a lesbian for 20 years, you never really think about it, right? You don't think about men hitting on you. It's like, oh, please go away. And you definitely don't think about like pregnancy with sex. Like that's not a thing when you're a lesbian. But anyway, I digress. This is what I wrote after a weekend with him. That's what it's titled, is A Weekend with Him. So bear with me. This is the first time I've actually said it out loud. Please forgive any tenses or anything like that. I have not pushed this past any kind of editor to tell me one way or the other. So, okay, here we go. When I think about the events of that weekend, it feels like a dream, like it happened to someone else. We met at a hotel bar. His friends wanted to buy a round of shots for a group of girls I was with. His friend was brooding and all ego. He came over to apologize for his friend, and we immediately locked eyes. He was strong, very handsome and sweet. Came to find out he was a Pisces, born in 1980. A lawyer from New York City. He seemed shy at first, almost passive. He apologized a lot. We talked about New Orleans, where I'm from, food that I love. We talked about football and hockey, lesbian stuff. We couldn't stop staring at each other's eyes. He had these beautiful green Irish eyes. I felt sexy. I felt confident. I felt empowered. That night, I wore a black flowy dress with a bit of a witchy vibe. Black boots, my makeup was fire. I was dressed to impress. While I had no idea what I was about to embark on, I was ready. TikTok had been telling me for weeks that I was going to be approached by a new opportunity. Right? They do that every week. Lo and behold, I think I found it. My last relationship left me feeling very ugly, very unsexy, and complicated. She says I wasn't a sexual person, and I was boring in bed. I carried those words on my back like a weight. I knew they weren't true, but part of me couldn't shake it. What if I was past my prime? What if she was right? When he leaned in to kiss me, that weight lifted. Like magic, I felt light and I felt sexy. I felt my body loosen up. I felt my soul reach out. He drew out this fiery feminine I had never felt before. He kissed me in the back of an Uber. He kissed me in the lobby of the hotel. No shame, no awkwardness, just us. The world felt like it melted away. Kissing a person with facial hair is different. Okay? Being held with strong arms and hands is different. It felt familiar and strange. It transported me to a time when I dated men way back in high school, like 20 years ago. Back then, I was young and naive. I didn't know what I needed or what I needed to ask for. Now I knew what my body needed. I knew what I wanted to ask for. I knew the positions that made me come. I knew how to make him satisfy me. It was different. I enjoyed this so much more than I'd ever had. And I came over and over and over again. All morning, well, let's just say, we went back to his place. Fucked all night. We wandered into the shower, eventually, to prepare for the day after we had spent all night together. He lathered soap and pressed it against my body. He was so gentle with the hands that minutes ago gripped my thighs. He stared into my eyes and washed the soap from my stomach and my shoulders. His eyes lit up as he said, "I want to go down on you." He immediately fell to his knees, pressed his face between my legs. My legs started to quiver. I told him, I was like, I'm not going to be able to stand. He stood up, grabbed me, picked me up against the shower wall and kissed me. He swung me out of the shower into the bedroom, laid me down on the bed, still wet from the shower. Our bodies glided across one another. He pushed his head between my legs and didn't stop until I curled up in ecstasy. I told him, "You do that like a lesbian." By this time, he was no longer shy. He didn't apologize. He was fully present and in his element. He was confident. He was sexy. I like to think that I empowered him the way he empowered me. Maybe he needed someone to make him feel sexy. Maybe he needed someone to unleash his inner masculine. I know he loved it. I know he loved every minute of it because he was hard more than he wasn't. He couldn't stop, neither could I. Eventually we got dressed, made our way upstairs. The rest of his friends were up there. We made plans for the day, and I noticed he was more closed off. He was more boy than man downstairs. I preferred the vulnerable man that was downstairs. As we walked to the door so I could leave, he kissed me, and he whispered, "Let's go back downstairs." He ran to the front door and down the stairs, and he already had his shoes off by the time I got there. He picked me up, threw me on the sofa, stared in my eyes, and literally looked at me and said, "One last time." It was intoxicating. His hand squeezed my waist. His body was on top of mine. I could feel him shaking. That time, he came harder than the last. He broke his rhythm and just laid there still inside of me. We both knew this was it. This was the last time. I swept my hands across his face, pulling him closer. I could have cried. The entire weekend's worth of emotions fell on me all at once, and it was so overwhelming. In that moment, he was closer to me than anyone. And soon we would be worlds apart. I know the universe is what brought us together. He was looking for an escape, and I was searching for the confidence I had lost. We found each other in a hotel bar. We found each other in a suite at the Capitals game. We found each other laying in that basement apartment. I left that town changed. My options were endless. My confidence restored. I am powerful. I am sexy. I'm in command of my own pleasure and pain. And that weekend proved I was limitless. Thank you.
This episode of FOREPLAY Goes South podcast was recorded and produced by event host and podcast creator Metanoia. For more information about FOREPLAY Goes South, Follow us at FOREPLAY GS on Facebook, FetLife, Instagram, and Twitter.